I was already successful as a part of a, international recording band, along with my four brothers, Sam, Joe, John, and Jesse, and we just went by our last name, the Katinas.
Yeah.
So up until that point, we were traveling all over the world, and um, my wife and I, Chrissy and I, we were already having conversations that here I am, making a living, doing what I love to do. There was a reality check as well, and the reality check was, man, how much longer are we going to be able to ride this wave where, this is my main bread and butter.
Hello and welcome to the Infinite Cash Flow Podcast. Today I have an incredible human being with me. He's not only my friend, my partner, but he's been an incredible person to get to know. We didn't know each other just a handful of years ago, and it's been incredible for us to connect with each other. And it is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome to the podcast my friend, partner, and all-around incredible human being, James Katina. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you, Carlos. So good to be with you, bro. It's truly an honor. What a great way for me to start the year out. This is awesome.
No, it's been a pleasure, and you and I have known each other for I don't keep count because it's all good, but I think between 5-ish or so years, maybe a little longer.
Bro, honestly, I think we're approaching close to 7-8 years.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know why 2017 sticks in my mind. So,
okay.
It's probably definitely more than 7 years.
That's awesome. It was a good year for the U.S. and it was a good year for us. So,
and we're coming back, bro.
We're coming back, baby.
Coming back.
That's awesome. Cool, my brother. So, look, our story is very simple, and I'm going to just share a little bit of how I met you for the audience. You know, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. All of you guys know that. And in one of my past business ventures, I was a co-founder with someone else, another group, of a multi-level marketing business. And we were basically building the network. And, it was going really well. We had great products. We had a great group of people. And all of a sudden, I saw on the charts and the dashboards that we had this name pop up very often. And it was James Katina. James Katina, one of the top producers in the whole company, kept popping up. And I was curious, hey, who's this James Katina guy? So I knew your name before anything else. And of course, you and I met, I believe, at one of our big meetings. And then, we started connecting, and the rest is history. So why don't you share with the audience a little bit of how it unfolded for you? Because I knew you were a rock star from the get-go, but maybe give your perspective of how the relationship started.
Yeah, absolutely, Carlos. It was, and I'm more and more clear now that it was right around 2017, because my son Levi is the youngest of my 5 children. At the time, he was just a year old, so he's just a baby. And Levi is he's 8 years old now. But so having this 1-year-old, that's kind of like the marker that I used to try to remember what was going on. And at that time, I was already successful as a part of a international recording band, along with my 4 brothers, Sam, Joe, John, and Jesse. And we just went by our last name, the Katinas.
Yeah.
So up until that point, we were traveling all over the world. And my wife and I, Chrissy and I, we were already having conversations for probably a year or two, that while we were really, really grateful to God and just thankful that here I am, um, making a living, doing what I love to do, there was a reality check as well. And the reality
Yeah.
check was, man, how much longer are we going to be able to ride this wave where, this is my main bread and butter, my main source of income. So that simple conversation just led to me looking, and Chrissy and I just said, hey, we're going to pray, but let's just look. Maybe there's another source of revenue stream that we can tap into. And neither one of us, went to further our education, went off to college. And so there was not many options, if you will.
Yeah.
But I remember some point in that year of 2017 when I came across, at the time, the way that I could make sense of it was like it was a profit sharing network, marketing component. And you could do it on the side, sort of a side hustle,
And somebody invited you, right?
Someone invited me,
Yeah.
gave me a link maybe.
Yeah.
And I just did my due diligence, looked into it. And I remember coming across the bio of these two guys, or there were three guys, and your story, and I just needed to know that this was legit.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
was gonna ask you just that.
yeah,
Did you ever think, man, this might be a scam?
well, I would say yes, right? Because the way I even knew about network marketing.
Yeah,
It's like a hit and miss.
for
You
sure.
hear the great testimonies, but
Yeah,
then you hear of that's a pyramid scheme or all
has a
this.
bad rep,
Yeah, it has a bad rep. So
for sure.
so once again, I just felt like, hey, and I was feeding all the information to Chrissy because she's
Hmm.
thinking the same thing. Like, well, is it legit? You
Yeah,
know, and so I did, and I felt enough at the time. Like, you know what? I feel like I've gotten all the answers that I needed, and shortly thereafter, I just I and honestly, Carlos, even now, I can't even remember all of the details of what this business was. I just
yeah,
remember that it was there was this component about, hey man, just sharing this opportunity with
yep.
people, and I was comfortable with that, and that's really for, I guess it was close to 2 years of
Hmm.
a window. I built a pretty solid team,
Yeah,
just because I love people, and I saw an opportunity. And of course, that's when I met you, and we can go into more
for
detail.
sure.
But you literally became not just a friend, a dear friend, but you became a mentor to me,
Mm.
because outside of music, which was really all I've known for my whole life, I didn't really have um, just the fundamentals of
Yes.
entrepreneurship and business and all that stuff. And you literally were that godsend for me, for
Yeah,
sure.
thank you. And you know what I noticed from my point of view is you were a man of action, right? You were not only one that was consuming the information and getting the knowledge, but you went to work right away, started connecting with people, building your team, and really doing the work, right? At the end of the day. And the second thing that I noticed is you were hungry for knowledge of entrepreneurship, and that was at heart, I think, one of the things that probably connected us as well, that we were both very interested in, hey, let's build a business that can create some money and build up our income and maybe create something long term that it's a legacy for our family. So I think those were common ground things that got us started, at least when we first met.
I agree.
Yeah. And then one of the things that I learned shortly after is that you were actually not born in the U.S., but that you were born in American Samoa, right? So you're like me, an immigrant to the United States, and that's, I think, another additional point. So why don't you tell us a little bit? Go back in time to when you were in American Samoa, and the little bit of the story, and what brought you guys to the U.S. and how that unfolded.
Yeah. So actually, and you know my story. You know, my dad is a military man.
Yeah.
He served in Vietnam, former Marine. So we were actually born in the States, but we moved to American Samoa when I was like 5, almost 6 years old.
Yeah.
This was in '78. So I was, as you said, that's what you and I have in common. I was raised in this little tiny island. It's a territory of the United States. But if anyone knows about Samoa, there's two Samoas. I was raised in American Samoa. It's not third world, but it's about as close to it as you can get.
Yeah.
But being raised there, I can only tell you, Carlos, there were so many life lessons, right? Just the culture, as you mentioned earlier. One thing you and I have in common is our work ethic,
Yeah.
and we worked for everything. We didn't have a whole lot, but whatever we did have, not only did we work for it, but early on, one of the best lessons that our parents taught us, and I know you come from the same kind of families, they taught us gratitude, to
Yeah.
be thankful for what we do have. We may not have as much as the next family or the next person, but I think that really was a huge part of the foundation. So yeah, so I as a little boy.
So I wanna debunk a myth, right? Since we're talking about this, when we ask people, "Hey, where's Samoa? Where's American Samoa?" Like I myself was completely wrong, by the way, when I first thought where I knew what it was. Like most people think it's like in Hawaii, right? Like and you can probably tell me of all the people that you've encountered that you tell them, oh yeah, where'd you come from? American Samoa, and they're like, they don't want to say anything because they don't know where that is, right? So
And to this day, yeah, people think that oh, you're from Hawaii.
yeah,
I
that's
said,
right.
well, no, you're so.
So let's
Try
clear
to
it for the
yeah.
audience. Let's clear it for the audience. How where is it exactly, and how long it takes to get there?
Yes. So I'll paint the picture geographically. Um, from Los Angeles to Hawaii is a 5-hour flight,
Yeah.
and then from Hawaii going further south to Samoa, which if you're trying to look for it on a map, it's a little penciled out. It's hard to see it because it's not big at all. But it's another 5-hour flight from
Wow.
Hawaii going south, literally right below the equator, deep in the
Wow.
South Pacific Ocean. And they get a lot of hurricanes over there because it's a volcanic island.
Yeah.
And the unfortunately those tiny little islands, Tonga, Fiji, the Solomon Islands, they're just kind of like hanging out there in the Pacific
Mhm.
Ocean. So but yeah, so American Samoa is about another 2,500 miles south of
Wow.
Hawaii. Yeah.
Wow. So you're actually closer to Ecuador than you are to the US. Right? You're on the equator. Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. And as most people know, it's like I was born in Ecuador originally. So we both were born in the southern hemisphere, not in the northern hemisphere. So that's
Well, it's
cool.
no wonder. It's no wonder, Carlos, why anytime people see us together, they literally think we're brothers.
That's
At the
right.
very least,
Family.
we're related. So, which I've always thought that was cool. But yeah, so growing up in this tiny little island of American Samoa, um, music, the way music really not only became a passion, but there was just not much to do there.
Mhm.
Especially for kids, right? There's two things that kids aspire to do to get off of the island. It's either become a great football player or
Yeah.
join the military, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the extent of the dream for a young person in Samoa. And
Wow.
back when we were growing up, my brothers and I, our dad would always say, "Hey, you can do music or you can do sports, and you're gonna do music. So he made the decision for us. If anyone knows, and this is what happens when you have a military, a former Marine, and a Pentecostal preacher as a dad.
There you go.
This dude was strong. He was a disciplinarian, but I think looking back at it in hindsight, he had to be right to raise these 5 boys. Now we are 5 of 12 children,
Oh wow.
8 boys and 4 girls in our family. But yeah, so the
Literally an
dream,
army.
it's a tribe,
Yeah.
and back, I don't know if it's the case in Ecuador, but at least in the Polynesian islands, they grew families big back then.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I mean,
Not anymore.
I've got 5 kids, and that's a good amount in today's society.
For
But
sure.
yeah, so 8 boys and 4 girls, and
So that goes. You guys are gonna do music. That's your
Yeah.
choice. Was he a musician too?
he was a musician, and
Okay.
again, because we didn't have a lot of resources, we couldn't afford to, get formal training or music lessons. Our dad, the little that he knew, he taught us. So,
Yeah.
which was basically how to harmonize,
Yeah.
vocally. And as far back as I can remember, I was probably 2 or 3.
Wow.
I remember being able to harmonize. Back in Samoa, part of the culture is you have evening devotions, right? And you can literally walk. I was going to say drive, but not a lot of people had cars. But you can walk through the village, and you can just hear families singing and having devotions, and it's
That's
always in harmony. Just a cappella,
Yeah.
no music, no accompaniment. So he taught us early on how to sing, how to harmonize. Learning instruments came a little later, but that really started this dream. We were like, man, this we feel like there's something there, and that's what started this dream for my brothers and I to really start pursuing music.
Wow. Yeah. So you fell in love. You were told to do music,
Yeah,
and I'm sure you guys practiced a lot, and then you fell in
Yeah.
love with it via the practice, right?
exactly.
When you
That's
started getting
exactly
good
what
at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, looking back at it now, I'm grateful that our dad was he was consistent.
Oh,
Our
yeah.
mom balanced him out, right? Because he
Yeah.
was the disciplinarian, and our mom was the encourager. So we were in our little, almost look at it like a little patio in this little house in the village of Waitongi. And our dad was like, okay, go do your chores, knock out your homework, and then get in the patio and just start practicing songs.
Yeah.
We didn't even have any place to sing at, but something told him that, hey, you guys, something's gonna come out of this.
Yeah.
And again, our mom would be in the kitchen, and one of us was probably crying because we were tired. Like, man, all the kids in the village, they're playing
Yeah.
outside, and here we are, we're stuck here. And she would just be the encourager. Said, "Oh, but boys, you sound so good. You're doing great. You make my heart smile when I hear you." So
Cool.
she had a way of just keeping us going with the music, because our dad was the disciplinarian and she was the encourager.
That's awesome. So you guys grew up basically singing together, right? Instruments. How did the instrument situation work out? Did dad assign an instrument to you guys, or you guys got to pick?
Yeah, so in a way, that's kind of what happened, where our dad and our mom, they got selected basically to become pastors of a little church in one of the villages. And so imagine, Carlos, our dad is not only giving the sermon, but he's leading worship, he's taking up the offering, he's doing everything, right?
Yeah.
So he and our mom must have had a conversation, and they said, man, we got all these boys. One of these kids need to learn how to at least play the the piano. And back then, in our little tiny church, we were meeting in someone's house. Our dad had what's called a pump organ, and the sound happens when you're pumping the pedals. So again, he's giving the message, he's doing all the stuff, in the program, and then he's playing this pump organ. And I just remember, we would, it's like we lived at the church. We had service on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday mid-service, Fridays was the youth, they had a service, and then Saturdays we had an early prayer meeting, like at 5 a.m. And I remember somewhere in the week when my dad got my oldest of the five of us, my older brother Sam, he just taught him a few chords on the pump organ. Again, no formal lessons. And that next Saturday morning, we're at the prayer meeting. I think my brothers and I were falling asleep, and we hear someone playing the pump organ. And at first I'm thinking, oh, it's my dad. But we look up and it was Sam. Sam's playing a couple, just basic chords. And that's what started us getting behind instruments. So Sam's on the keys, and we do this more in a kind of a hierarchy system, where oldest to youngest. So Joe's next in line, he gets behind the drums, and then, as you know, I'm a twin, right? I'm the oldest by 26 minutes, so I'm the third next in line, and I got behind the bass guitar. Now Sam, because he was the most musical of us, and he was one of those guys where he can pick up an instrument and kind of know the basics. Once again, I didn't get the chance to have any formal lessons, but Sam taught me what he knew.
Wow.
We had a little amp in his bedroom, and after school every day I'd have to meet him in his room, and maybe an hour of just learning, how to play the bass. And that's how we became the band. But there was one rule in those of us who were playing instruments. We weren't allowed to play without being able to play and sing at the same time. So not a lot of bands do that, but
that's true.
Our dad, again, he just felt like, I guess, the foundation of our sound and what we do musically was going to be the feature was going to be our vocals.
So true. And now that I think about that, if any of you guys look up the Katinas, and you should look up the Katinas and go to YouTube and you listen to your music, James, that's kind of the trademark of the Katinas, your voices.
It is. So thanks again to this former Marine and Pentecostal preacher. We've got the scars to prove all the spankings we got, but I am truly grateful because that was the start of it.
So that's the start. How did you guys make it to the U.S.? Like, when does that happen, and what were the circumstances?
They were unfortunate circumstances, because our mom was diagnosed with cancer, with breast cancer, and this was back in. They first diagnosed her back in 1984. So I was 12 years old, and so we're in the islands. Mom and Dad fly to the United States for treatment, and so the cancer did. It went into remission. So we were grateful to God that she's doing okay. But then it resurfaced in 87, and when it came back, it spread throughout her body. It came back with a vengeance, and she was literally bedridden for a whole year. They came back to the States, and it was later it was April of 1988, so about a year and a half of this taking over her body. She passed away April 21st, and I was only 16. So
Wow.
she passed away in Tacoma, Washington. That's where she was getting treatment. So the five of us, we obviously, what had happened was in December.
Was it the five of you guys, mom, dad? Were the 12
Yeah,
kids in Tacoma?
no, no, just the five of us at
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Our older brother, Dave, who's a church planter, a pastor to this day, he stayed back
Okay.
to take care of the church because, we were pastoring. And so from December of 87, I remember that happened to be Christmas break, because I was in maybe a freshman in high
Yeah.
school. So, but when we got to Tacoma, just to be with mom and dad, dad said, you know what, you guys are just going to stay here. Just stay here. You're not going to go back to Samoa. And so they enrolled us into school, which is a whole other story of just culture shock, because we're just island boys. And in December, in anywhere in the States, but certainly in Seattle, it was cold. It was freezing.
Yeah.
We didn't have socks, we had I think they went to Salvation Army and picked up some jackets for us. But so yeah, the adjustment to being back was crazy. And later, it was April of 88, she was gone,
Wow.
But of course,
Oh, you all were teenagers mostly,
teenagers.
right?
Yeah, I think Sam may have just turned 20, so he was the oldest. Jesse, the youngest of the five of us, was 13 or 14. Yeah. So just imagine, and we're a tight knit family. To lose our mom, and of course, she had battled this disease for so many years. But you know what it's like, Carlos.
Yes.
And really, as believers, you just don't see the day that she's gonna be gone. We just believe, and we're just, she was bedridden for those many months, but in our minds, we're thinking, oh, she's just gonna be around.
Yeah.
So when mom passed away, that was a huge defining moment especially for the five of us.
Yeah. So mom passes away. Your dad, how did he take it? I'm sure it was also hard on him. And then you guys stayed, right? You guys didn't go back.
Once again, this becomes a transitional moment. It was the first time that I saw this former Marine stern man cry. Obviously, when his wife, when our mom passed away, but we buried her, and she lays in rest in Tacoma, Washington. And a few months later, so I guess around the summer, around June of that year, our dad said, "Hey, I've got to go back home, to continue pastoring the church, go back to Samoa. What do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to stay here in the States?" Wow. And Carlos, a little bit about our dad's story. That was a huge shocker, because we just thought for sure, again, most of us are teenagers. We're all going back to Samoa. Yeah. But something in him, which, by all accounts, that was a huge decision on his part. This young father to say, you know what? If my 5 sons want to stay here and pursue their dreams, because now they're in the land of opportunity, I'm gonna take that chance. And he was actually ridiculed. He was criticized and ridiculed by a lot of his family members.
I bet. But do you think it had anything to do with, he was a Marine himself, and he probably joined the service.
Oh yeah,
very young too.
Teenager. Yeah, 18 years old. Yep.
Yeah. So in his mind, he probably saw you guys at the same place where he was early on in his life, where he left the coop, right? He left the nest, and I maybe thought you guys are ready, especially since It's a little group of you guys, right?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. You're spot on, Carlos. That's really what it came down to, because again, he saw that, you know what, there's nothing for my boys
Yeah.
in that island. They're here now, um, and I think he was just willing to count the cost, so to speak.
Yeah.
But hey, it's going to be hard. Again, Sam, the oldest of the five of us, I think he was barely 20 years old. So even barely legally to be a guardian. But he became our mom and dad, because our dad did go back to the islands, and there we were. We were on welfare. We lived in this rental home. And we didn't know it at the time, but it was in one of the roughest areas of Tacoma. You know, on either side of us were boarded up houses. These were what they called crack houses, right? And it was pretty normal and a regular basis, where the SWAT team or the police, because you could see the sirens in front of our house. And I remember when that happened the first time, we're like, man, what's going on? But that was a regular occurrence.
Wow.
Just to give you sort of a picture of where we lived. But again, our dad, there was something, and really a faith, a kind of faith that said, you know what? God's going to take care of these boys. I feel it in my gut. And he allowed us to stay. And we got into some troubles. You know, we made some mistakes. You know, you just can imagine, you know, here we are, these five boys under the age of 20 trying to figure things out. We're on welfare.
For sure.
And that's when we just started getting invited to little local churches.
I think he probably saw also the opportunity was a lot greater here than back in the islands, right? So I think I connect with that a lot, because I think my dad was the same way, right? My dad and my mom, that both of them kind of pushed us towards, hey, go to the U.S., you know, go to the land of opportunity where dreams come true. So I think that could also have been part of the thought process. So
yeah, I agree.
Here you guys are by yourselves, 5 boys, in one of the roughest neighborhoods in Tacoma, Washington. How did you stay away from the bad influences? Like I'm sure there was plenty, and you guys were probably still, some of you, going to school. Like, how did you stay away from the folks that probably had ended up in jail eventually, right?
Well, 2 things: the grace of God, and again, because we were afraid of our dad, man.
Nice.
Even though he was thousands of miles away in the South Pacific, you know, he would call us and just check up on us, right? And again, that's credit to just the way he brought us up. And we had each other. We really did lean on each other to look out for each other. And I do certainly I give a lot of kudos to my brother Sam, because imagine a 21-year-old, you know, he's in the prime of his life, you know, to go have a girlfriend and to experience things, but he was tasked by our dad to be the guardian. And I can't imagine that kind of pressure, but I just know that he had that pressure to make sure that our welfare checks were coming in, that the rent was paid, and all the stuff that a parent would need to do. This guy had to do it, and he wasn't perfect, but man, he somehow he kept us together.
Yeah, that's awesome. Interesting enough, I became my brother's guardian here too.
Very similar, yes.
In the U.S. when he got deported from Ecuador to the U.S. because he was in trouble over there. So yeah, that was kind of another similarity. So wow. So did you guys at any point in time decided, hey, you know, now that we're free, right? Let's not do music. Let's do something else, and just kind of split the band. Did that ever almost happen, or did you guys just kind of stay together and kept playing?
You know what? it's really interesting, Carlos. And again, it was I can only think of it this way. It was the way that our parents, and especially our dad, um, raised us.
Mm,
Um, he raised us unity was such a big focal point.
yeah,
And I just remember as a little kid, hey, love each other. You know,
yeah,
we were like every other sibling where we would fight. We would, especially John and I as twins, we, barely
yeah.
kill each other, right? But
Boys.
he would always drop this seed of, hey, no, you guys, you have to be there for each other. And
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, especially during this period of time where these five brothers are in Tacoma, Washington on welfare, there were moments where it was like survival mode,
Wow.
but we were together. And it's
Yeah.
almost like you could play back this message that our dad instilled in us. So I don't think that we ever looked at it as, okay, now we have the freedom. I think we did see that, you know what? Because it goes back to many nights in
Yeah.
Samoa where we thought music, music could get us off of this island. Well,
Mm,
now here we are, and
yeah.
just think about it, Carlos. Our dad didn't have like some manual and say, okay, now you're in the States. This
Yeah.
is who you need to meet. He just said, okay, you're in the States. You're gonna figure it out. I'm gonna pray for you, but you're gonna
Hmm.
figure it out. And
That's
that's
awesome.
pretty much what happened because we didn't know how to connect
Wow.
the dots. Like, okay, all we knew is that here we are in this land of opportunity, and then one thing led to another.
That's amazing. And now you guys have been doing this, playing as a group, as brothers, as the Katinas for how many years total?
It's been probably 36 years
Wow.
if I pinpoint the time, but yeah, it's been,
36
yeah.
years.
So for
You
most of
know,
our lives, for sure.
and what's amazing to me, James, is that you guys have stayed together for 36 years through, I'm sure, girlfriends, marriages,
Bro, we're
kids.
writing the book. We are writing the book.
Yeah.
You have no idea,
like
man.
like through thick and thin.
You think
It's
of it,
still,
we've been through it for sure.
yeah, which is to me, I've always told you that, right? Like how amazing it is that you guys like stuck it out no matter what, stuck it out. I'm sure you guys had fights and disagreements and
Bro,
all
to
kinds
this
of good
day,
stuff.
to this day, we're older. I'd like to think we're wiser, but man,
Yeah,
there's a reason why they say working with your family is almost impossible. So,
yeah,
bro, I I love my brothers,
that's
but there
awesome,
is
man.
no doubt that
No,
uh,
and
we've been through
I've
it.
been with your family plenty.
Yeah,
You guys are incredible. Like the
thank you,
unity, the
man.
love, your spouses, the kiddos.
Yeah,
They all help and work together.
yeah.
Even with the band and the merch and all that stuff. So huge glory to God to
Amen.
keep you guys together because you have a huge purpose to
Thank
reach folks with Jesus's message, but
you.
also just keeping that family together. I think you guys have done an
Thank you.
incredible job at doing that. So big congratulations for that.
Thank you, bro.
That's awesome. So fast forward now to we meet, we start doing some business together, and then that company, just kind of for the audience, tell you guys, that company ended up not working out like many businesses do. But one thing that I think was amazing is, in my gift from that company is you, right? And I tell that to a lot of folks because amazingly enough, I don't talk to anybody else that we did business with during those days but you. so so that was cool. And then shortly after that, so this thing closes out, and I don't know at what point, but we started talking about real estate, right? So maybe share that piece. I had bought some real estate myself before that, but I think you took a trip to Denver, And maybe it was before or after that, but share with the audience a little bit of how that unfolded, where we started doing some real estate together.
So yeah, 100%, Carlos. So it was the end of 2020. Of course, the world was in chaos, right? Everything was shut down. And oddly enough, it just happened to work out where that business, that online business, that's when I really found the most success. But as you mentioned, it dissolved eventually towards the end of 2020. And I remember you probably texting me and say, "Hey, I noticed that you haven't touched your account. I mean,
your money,
that money, that online account." And of course, at the time, I just figured, you know what, I'm just going to let that thing stack up. I don't necessarily need it right now. But I remember when you asked me, you said, "What are you going to do with it?" And I said, "You know what, I don't have any ideas, but do you have any thoughts?" And again, this was the end of 2020. You said, "You know what? Why don't you let's go buy some real estate." I think that's exactly let's go buy some real estate together.
Yeah.
Let's invest, this money. Let's invest it into some real estate. And I just remember there was a couple of thoughts. The first thought was, man, I have no idea. Like where do I even? I don't know how to invest in real estate, but okay, that sounds interesting. And that's of course what led me to a few months later. It was February of the next year, Carlos. I asked you. I said, "Hey man, would you have a weekend available? Just a couple of days. I'd love to come and hang out with you and maybe just brainstorm." So you and Myra were kind enough and said, "Yeah, come out." So I flew out. I think it was -4 degrees in February, and we did. We had a great time. I loved being with you and Myra and my nephew and niece, and we did. I don't even know that we talked a whole lot about this is the game plan,
right?
But I just remember spending that weekend together with you, and it did. It inspired me, and it challenged me too, to really think about what's possible outside of, at this point, all I've known, which was music. Because there was some trepidation, just thinking that, man, all I know is music. But I remember that weekend, and I've shared this with Chrissy in depth many times, that was really what I call a defining moment. Being there on that weekend, and we did. I asked you. I might have had a notepad with me, and I was just asking you some questions like, where do I start? And you gave me just a simple list of maybe 5 things. One was, maybe it's time to just create a little LLC. Yeah. And so I did. I went home, and I think I knocked out whatever that list of 5 things were. Yeah. And I remember one of the things that I did was had Chrissy, my wife, and I jump on probably a 30-minute Zoom with you, because I needed you to validate what I was sensing, and not being able to articulate it to Chrissy, but I just knew that I need to go on this path. And of course, that's really what solidified in my eyes, Carlos, you really just taking me under your wings and becoming this mentor, this person to guide me. Because I think one of the thoughts that I sensed strongly was I needed to expedite the process. Right. I didn't, I wish I could have come across a Carlos Salguero in my 20s or in my 30s, but I just took the opportunity that was in front of me. Yes. And I just remember this sense of, man, it's urgent.
That's awesome.
And you did.
I wish I had met myself back in my 20s right now.
Well, sure. I can understand. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy how it works, right? So cool. So I remember we got together, and then shortly after I was like shopping for deals, right? And and we found a little fourplex. We found a little fourplex in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which we still own today together. And that was our first deal, right? Our first deal. It's not pretty at all, guys. Like it's actually old. It's probably over 100 years old, but but it's cash flowing, right? Like we figured out this is how much we're gonna buy it for. This is how much rents are. This is how much we're gonna make. And interesting enough, we bought it right, and it has cash flowed every month ever since, with its challenges, of course, like every business venture. But we've owned that for probably 4-ish years, almost 5 years now. Yeah, and then, yeah, which is awesome. And then now what happens is, like, I kind of in the back of my mind thought, man, in order for us to like scale this thing to any significant size, man, it's gonna take a lot of fourplexes, bro. And I don't know if we can. Yeah, I don't know if we can do this big time. So I remember it clearly. I was working out in my home gym because everybody had a home gym during COVID. I was working out in my home gym, and you texted me and said, "Hey, man, this guy Grant Cardone is talking about real estate, and he has a live. Let's connect." Or I think you already went through it, and you bought a ticket for me, right?
It was on a weekend, Carlos, and I only remember that because normally I'm on the road. I'm on tour with the guys, but I happened to be home on that weekend, and you would have thought that, okay, it's a rare weekend at home. I'm going to spend with my family. I actually open up my laptop and I'm just scrolling online, and you're right. This guy comes on, and I think I had heard of Grant Cardone, but really didn't know in depth what he was about. But he was doing just a live, and I just remember him saying, "Man, just come spend 60 minutes," which of course turned into 6 hours. And he was just breaking down how really anyone, you don't have to be wealthy, but anyone, if you just kind of learn how to do this, you could see your money grow by investing in real estate. And of course, back in those 2020, 2021, the rates were quite low, so
sure.
Everything was making sense. And I was glued to the information, and I do remember I was thinking, well, man, this is exactly what I'm learning from Carlos, like currently. I don't know if you remember, you sent me a couple of audiobooks. One of them was The ABCs of Real Estate by Ken McElroy. So
Ken McElroy.
Ken McElroy, and so it was heightened awareness. Investing in real estate I was just gobbling up, kind of like being under a fire hose. So when I'm seeing this live by this guy, and he's saying, "Oh, and by the way, I'm going to have my first real estate summit in Miami in a few months in the summer. If you want to come join me, just get a ticket." I didn't just get a ticket; I got 2 VIP tickets. And I tell people, and I don't recommend this, but I didn't even tell my wife. Right? I mean, I think they were like close to $2,000 a ticket, but I just knew that this is that thing. And I got me a ticket, and I got another ticket, and the only person I could think of was Carlos Salguero. So I called you after I had already purchased the ticket, and I remember telling you about it, and you said, "You know what? Let me rearrange some things in my schedule. We're going to go to this thing."
Yeah, and I think I made the same mistake as you did, which is I didn't tell my wife, and I said, "Yeah, let's go."
Yeah.
So it was all good, and I'll kind of fast forward a little bit so that we can get to the good part for some of you guys. We end up going to this summit. Of course, we're there for 2 days, I think it was, and man, we ate it all up. Right? We went like all the way. Got into a club, and but I think after the whole thing, one thing that was clear for me at least was we needed to know people that were doing deals and wanted to do real estate, right? That was super clear, which was going to help our growth. But second, we were thinking way too small, right? We were like way too small. And that's one thing that Grant Cardone did for the whole weekend. He dogged all the small deals. Like he told us, go sell that trash, right? Sell the trash. If we have a small deal, sell the trash. I mean, literally, that's how it was. So, and I in a way, I was like, man, why are you attacking our fourplex, right? It's cash flowing. So initially, you kind of get a little defensive because you've invested in this. But one thing that I got from that whole thing, and you can tell me what you got, was I saw this guy on stage that was buying big, beautiful properties, and I really didn't see anything different from me to him. So I said, man, if this short dude on stage can buy big real estate, then I can do it too. I'm actually taller than him, right? So I'm like, okay, let's go, right? So I think that was for me. I don't know what was for you, that experience, but I didn't really learn anything like the analysis or the numbers or nothing, because everything was like a whirlwind, right? But it was like oh man, big deals are not as hard as I thought they are. They're accessible to everyone.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I did. I heard the same sentiment. As he's just as passionate as he is for those 3 days. But I do remember, because obviously you and I were together for those 3 days. I remember seeing something light up in you, and again, it was not even about the information, but it was just the confirmation that, okay, if this guy can do this, if these guys can do it, then why can't I do it? Why can't two immigrant cats do it?
That's right.
And that's and I remember you and I left that, and I remember you saying several times, several occasions, you know what, we got to think bigger. Mm-hmm. And that seed was the one that really needed to be planted and watered, because that's really what began, as they say, everything else is history.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we left that room that weekend.
Yeah. And
man, I was excited, but I was also frustrated because, like, man, I should have already learned this so much long ago, right? Like 10 years ago, whatever. So I think part of it was frustration, part of it was excitement, and I just couldn't do anything but look for deals, right? Started looking for deals, and I truly think this whole thing was God ordained, right? You buying a ticket for me, going there, and then shortly after that event, we actually find a deal in Tennessee, in your backyard, practically, right? In Murfreesboro, Tennessee. You're in Franklin, 30 so minutes away, and I find it online. Beautiful property, gorgeous. We own it until this day, and it's a $18.6 million deal. And of course, I mean, our fourplex, just for context, guys, our fourplex that we bought before this, I think we paid $180 $185 million, right? So, sorry, 185,000. That's right. And then I'm like, okay, we're done with the small stuff. Let's go for the big stuff. And then I find something in your backyard that is like $18.6 million, without having the money, without having the knowledge or the full knowledge of it, and without really having ever done a deal that was multiple 8 figures. And yep, oh yeah, 100%. So my next thing is like, oh, James is in Tennessee. Call you up. Hey, bro, can you go see the property and FaceTime me from there? And then you show up. Yeah, you show up, FaceTime me, and we love the property, right? We love the property. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be there in a couple days. So in that kind of set off the journey of the big real estate for us.
Bro, it still, it just brings, I can get emotional just still. It's still like yesterday, because it was like, wow, how is this even possible? I mean, I remember getting out of the car and when I, even before I FaceTimed you, I remember thinking, wait, are we sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Yeah.
But I really do, my brother. I just credit you for not just being an amazing mentor and just a great guide, but it's really your actions. And I know, again, we're talking a lot about the upbringing, immigrants coming to this country.
Yeah.
But that's the power of your story, bro, that has impacted me, and it will have a lasting impact, because you are the true epitome of what it means to, we're gonna, just because I don't have it all figured out, it's not going to stop me from the pursuit. And I've seen you, even to this day, Carlos, you have led the team in acquiring even bigger deals than the Gateway. And you didn't let even a limited knowledge or information stop you. You've been this guy that I say, man, he's the guy that's willing to learn along the way, even come up against hurdles, but it's all about the pursuit and that purpose. And I'm forever grateful to you.
Thank you, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. So James, how has that changed your outlook in investing in real estate, in particular in commercial real estate?
Yeah, Carlos, I think that up until before I met you, during that time, again, going back to mentorship, you, in a very accelerated way, you just showed me and you taught me, and it just almost like the ABCs of why, okay, it's one thing to earn income and then you save income. And I think I was doing okay in those two categories. But the third one was, in fact, investing, or as we say, growing the money. And so once I started doing that, working with you through assets, through real estate, I saw three things: cash flow. I've been putting away money with a IRA, like a simple retirement IRA, but I would never see any dividends from that, right? With real estate, investing in real estate, that's one of the benefits. You see cash flow on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis. Yeah. And then the second thing, which was huge for people who are in the industry of entertainment, whether it's athletes or whether it's musicians like myself, it was the tax benefits, huge tax benefits.
Yes.
And then and that's a big one. And of course you've done a deep dive and you've taught so many people just the benefits that you receive through taxation. And then of course the third thing is how your money grows over time. When you see these assets mature, you're going to see your money double, maybe sometimes 3x. And those three things right there, and like I shared with you before, I wish I would have known these basic principles in my 20s, even in my 30s. But you would always say, hey, you know it now, and moving forward, we can make up time. So
I think I'm so glad you mentioned about the people in the music business, entertainment, creatives, and maybe even athletes, right? It's very common for them to make a ton of money in a short amount of time, and then maybe not really understanding how to protect that wealth and continue to make it grow after the career has ended, or after, it just, they got injured in the case of an athlete, or they got traded out, or maybe in the case of a musician, that they have a big hit and then it kind of stabilizes, or it kind of dwindles the career. So talk a little bit about your experience as a recording artist that has had a very long career, over 30 years performing with your brothers. What you have seen in the music industry in terms of just financial IQ and investing, and maybe your experience there, and maybe that even drove you to try to look for an alternative path for your money.
So, Carlos, I'll just say this: full transparency. Unfortunately, and I'm just going to speak as a musician. There was little to no blueprint or examples, and that's why I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm really grateful that God led me to you when He did. I just believe it was perfect timing, because otherwise, what happens, and I know this happens it happened for me, but it happens for musicians. I think it happens even for athletes. You can live in this this scarcity mindset, right? So we're good at grinding, we're good at putting in the work, and I think a lot of that for me and my brothers, we got that. We picked that up from our Marine father. He was a worker, but as you and I both know, hey, there comes a time when whatever career you have, it's going to end. And what I remember, this was when you and I started working together. You started mentoring me. You really just started teaching me the concept of growing your money, because that was non-existent. I was able to purchase a beautiful home here in Williamson County, here in Franklin, Tennessee. And that was pretty much all I had in the way of assets, right? Mm-hmm. But I just knew that, hey, there's no guarantees. The next day is not promised.
That's right.
And whenever that time comes that the music stops, therefore my work with the Katinas stops, I'm going to have to look for something else. Again, myself, Chrissy, we didn't further our education. We don't have degrees. So that would have been problematic had I not started looking at this when I did, in regards to investing, in regards to growing the money that I do have.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think one of the things that I noticed too is, in your case, I think you've had a very stable career, and you were able to build a little bit of a legacy, even with the Katinas and the music. But we all age and we get older, and I know you guys travel a lot, so that I'm sure takes a toll in the time away from family. But a lot on the musician side, I think a lot of them make a lot of money, and then what happens that I see is that let's say they have a big hit, they make millions of dollars, and then they start living to that millions and millions of dollars level of income. When that starts dwindling, and unless they can produce another big hit that may or may not come, then now they start depleting their lump sums or their big contract advances or anything else that got paid very quickly. And then some of them even get in trouble with the IRS, and then just challenges for not having the financial IQ. And additional to that, they sometimes hand the finances to someone else that is not necessarily qualified or has the best interest in mind for their situation. Might be a family member, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt. I mean, just so many horror stories of that happening. So have you seen that? Have you experienced that? Have you, maybe you had a healthy fear for that not happening to you and your brothers?
Well, thankfully, it hasn't happened to me or to any of my brothers.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I've seen it so many times, especially living in this town. As you
Yes.
mentioned, you could be riding high with a great hit song, and here's what happens. This is kind of how it works. You get a hit song, or maybe a few hit songs, top five single, maybe a number one, and what then happens after that, because of the momentum, you go on
Hmm.
tour, right? So as you go on tour, that's a whole nother revenue stream, and you could be on tour because of those one or two hit songs for 9 months, or it can carry over into a couple years. And you hit
Yeah.
it on the head, Carlos. What happens is people in the industry, specifically in the music industry, they just start to live above their means,
Yeah.
you know. And once again, unfortunately, they have not been able to acquire even a financial advisor,
Yeah.
whether it's their relative or not, but someone who is sound and saying, "Hey, let's plan for a rainy day, and let's
Hmm.
let's let's stretch this out, or let's even grow it." I just unfortunately have seen too many instances here recently too. I won't mention any names, but you see a guy on all of the banners, the billboards. They're doing great. Artists that are hitting the road, 1 and 2 years consecutively, and certainly that revenue is coming in. But unfortunately, just as quickly as that revenue came in, it
Yeah.
left. It got spent, you know, and some people, they wake up or they come to their senses, but sometimes it's almost a little bit too late,
Yeah. Those are
you
true.
know.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is that feeling of, man, I've made it, and what I've seen is like big stashes of money. If they are not consistently being worked and grown, and money multiplies, they deplete. Like, time just goes on, and you're spending, and if you're not having that money work for you, it just goes away. So the financial IQ part, I think, is huge. And I'll tell you, for me personally, when I made some good money out of my exit of my company, which kind of translate to maybe having a big hit on the music industry, or a good sports career contract or something like that, I was fearful, because I was like, man, I made this one, but I don't know if this is gonna be a year after year type of thing. So I was like, how do I educate myself to protect this money and grow it over time, and take advantage that, also I don't want to pay these massive tax bills, right? So that was my solution with real estate. And I think that, commercial real estate investing has given me that ability to protect my money, grow my money, and feel a lot better long term, thinking, okay, now I have a great outlook for my family about that. So maybe talk about you in terms of, when you started realizing about this. I'm sure that is not easy to even communicate it to your family or your friends in the music business and stuff like that, because so maybe tell me the experience of, hey, when you first came to them and said, man, I'm excited about this, like what was kind of the reaction that you found?
Well, Carlos, you know this because you have a great wife who is sound. It helped
Yeah.
that I have a great wife who just gave me some wisdom, even some counsel on, hey, I know that it's like you have discovered the blueprint of the master plan, but just know that not everyone is where you're at.
Yeah.
Certainly not everyone will probably understand just the enthusiasm of what you've discovered, because they don't have a mentor. So I thought that was a really good advice. And so what I did, Carlos, and I think you and I have talked about it in the past, is I I shared certainly what I was doing with my brothers, first and foremost. But for the most part, I just waited till they had questions, or maybe
Yeah.
they would inquire about what I'm doing, especially from an investing standpoint. And sure enough, it's amazing how God just kind of orchestrates, questions. He, And so little by little, because people are watching, right? And we're always watching each other, whether we say it out loud or not. And
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that was the case with some of the brothers. They're like, man, that's pretty cool. So you're a part owner in apartments. How does that work? You know?
Yeah,
And so it really did give me an opportunity to not only share with them what I was doing, but really why I was doing it. You know,
hmm,
just because, again, it's been amazing to make a living, earn an income by doing what we love to do, which was our music. But as I started just looking, Chrissy and I were just looking at uh, just our situation moving into the future from a very practical standpoint. We just knew that, okay, there's got to be something else, another way to increase our money
yeah,
outside of just saving here and there, putting towards a retirement plan. And so the conversations really just started flowing. And again, I wouldn't say much until they inquired.
yeah.
And as you know, Carlos, the brothers and I started investing in smaller rental properties, in,
That's
in
right.
single family homes that we still own today. They've all appreciated over the last 2 or 3 years. So, man, all glory to God, because again, I think like the tree, you just plant the seed. You
Hmm.
plant the seed, and by way of conversation, it waters. And over time, that curiosity with the brothers turned into, well, hey, why can't we do some of this together? And
Yeah,
opportunities have opened up. We're actually looking at some property even now as we speak. And it all started just by that seed that was planted.
that's awesome. I love to hear that. And it's, I think one of the big things is as a group of family group, and I'm always really amazed at how close you guys are as brothers, and just the kids and the spouses and your family group. I think that's a dynasty in the making, right? Because if you can create some of that legacy wealth for your future generations, then that creates that. So I know that you recently became a grandpa. Congratulations, uh, little guy. And so how has that maybe shaped your outlook of, hey, I want to build for the future, the future Katinas that you will meet, but maybe a couple generations away you won't.
Well, thank you for asking about that. Shiloh, my grandson, he's a little over 6 months. And I think with Shiloh coming to the world, it made this whole idea of investing in real estate, but just investing in general, it made it more real, as you
Yeah.
can imagine, right? Because now it's a new addition. It's the next generation. And what I love about it, Carlos, in now experiencing just, of course, the joys of having this little person, right, that comes from my lineage, is the fact that I number one, I get to spoil him, and I love
Nice.
that a part of it. Chrissy and I, we get to have Shiloh every Friday, so we call it Shy Day Friday. That's our
Right.
day where we get to just spend time with him, just help out the parents, Jackson and Leah. But again, it is a continuation. When I think about this little guy, and I'm believing, Lord willing, we'll have many more grandkids. Um, that's the hope. That really, for me, is I've really bought all in to the idea of not just earned income, stored income, but now income and revenue that I can, or money that I can invest. Why do I
Yeah.
do that? Because you and I, we'll probably live till we're 90 or 100. We'll see what
Right.
God says about that. But we get to, by doing what we're doing as far as investing, we get to leave a legacy.
Hmm.
I've already told my kids, and they know this, and I know they're going to teach their kids the same thought, the same idea. I'm not leaving money behind. I'm leaving assets.
Yes.
And it's really the principle.
Yeah.
It's really something that, again, I wish I would have learned when I was a lot younger, but I'm thankful that I've learned it now, and what I'm learning and will continue to be a student in this is I'm going to pass it on to the next generation, my kids, and
Yeah.
they're going to pass it on to their kids, and on, even long before we're gone. Your
Yeah. For
name is
sure.
going to live on, brother, and so is
That's
mine.
awesome. I love
Yeah,
it. And that part excites me a lot. And another thing that I was thinking about is, you shared with me once that because of the work that you guys have done, and following God and worshiping Him, and just doing the music and being loyal, you've also been the recipient of amazing generosity from wealthy people, right? And so maybe talk a little bit about like that, because what I see in your future, just knowing how you're deploying your money and investing in real estate, I think you're going to be at some point in the future in that position to also bless other people with that generosity that you guys have been given. So how does that feel?
absolutely, Carlos. Well, I'll tell you, to whom much is given, much is required, right? And
Yes.
that's not just a clever passage that we've come across over time, but think about it. That is the promise from God,
Mm-hmm.
right? He says, "Man, be faithful over the little. When you do that, I will entrust you with more."
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I've seen in you, and that why God continues to expand your territory. But you're right, Carlos. Over the years, as we've been doing ministry, and can you believe it? We've been in ministry now for over 36 years, full-time
Wow.
ministry. The music platform has been wonderful, but over time, because when we were in our 20s, it was really all about the music. But it's amazing how God even grows you, He matures you. And as we've gotten older, as we've gotten married, had our kids, what has happened is God has really entrusted us with more. Our message has expanded to where,
Yeah.
we have our own. It's a missions arm of the Katinas ministry, and it's called Love Squared. And it's basically, Love Squared is love God, love people. And
Mm-hmm.
we've always had a passion for young people, and here we are. We have an opportunity through Love Squared to pour into young people, to develop them into leaderships. That's what Love Squared is: love God, love people, and lead well. So we've been seeing this work grow now for the last 5 or 6 years. But you mentioned, Carlos, as God would have it, and this is where you can't put a limit on God,
Yeah.
because what He's done over the last 30 plus years is He's brought people into our lives, people who are well off, are wealthy, who have businesses, and it's like they're what they would call the ministry of helps. They've
Mm.
come alongside, a band like us, a small ministry, and they've poured in. I won't mention any names, but there's a group who've literally put our kids through college, who've
Wow.
paid who've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for our kids to go to very great higher education. And so, while you can't put a formula on how God works it out, here's what I know. I think when it comes to finances, and even when it comes to investments, I think when God sees that we are being good stewards, you and I
Yeah.
talk a lot about that topic of stewardship. It's amazing what He puts in your sphere, including other people
Mm-hmm.
that have come alongside my brothers and I in our ministry, and just literally have said, you know what, we want to partner because we believe that the soil that you're building your platform, your ministry on, it's fertile soil, and we want
Yes.
to pour into that. So we've seen that, and it's mind blowing. And we just are so grateful again, because it puts us in a position to whom much is given. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing with the blessings, the finances, the resources, the partners that come in? And we have these partners that contribute and give on a monthly basis. And we'll probably talk a little bit about purpose, but it's this is not just to say, okay, it for me to just have and to squander. I mean, we've seen examples of that, but I really believe that if you want to expand and leave a legacy, that's what God desires for us.
So
but
true.
The question is, man, am I gonna be someone that God can trust me with the wealth and with the resources that He gives us?
So true. You know, and when you talk about the opportunity that you guys had of somebody coming and blessing you and the kids with college educations, and now you at some point being able to pay that forward to maybe another family or in another way, shape, or form, you know, I think that's very, very exciting to be in a position where you can measure that and say, you know what, if we keep investing the way we're investing, in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, we'll be in a position to absolutely be free from financial need, but also not only set up our families, but even beyond that, right? Even beyond the people that have blessed us or people that we want to bless that we know need that and that are serving God or you know, carrying a big mission, a big purpose. So that's exciting. I think, you know, that's something that I see as well for me and Myra and my family, that we can pour into other folks in blessing. You know, so far I think one of the things we want to do a lot is like, hey, we want to help you and teach you this, because I think everybody can do it, right? Everybody can invest. It doesn't matter if you're just getting started, if you already have some money, if you have an IRA, a 401k, anyone at any level can start this. And you and I agree on something. I wish we had started this way sooner, right? Way sooner. So, you know, what I wanted to chat to about is like, for me, you know, finding God in my life and really giving my life to Christ in my early 20s was a complete change in a direction that at first I didn't see, but I knew in my heart that accepting God and accepting Jesus as my Savior was the path that I was gonna create incredible happiness and purpose and joy, and of course even wealth, right? So I know for you guys, you know, you guys were born in a Christian family basically, and that, but maybe tell me a little bit about how your faith and your belief and your relationship with God and Christ has shaped your decisions and your future, because I've seen it in many areas of your life, but I think that for the folks that are watching this, it's going to be very interesting of how that has played a huge part for you and your family.
You know, Pastor Rick Warren, and you've heard of Rick Warren.
Yes.
Not only is a great pastor of a great church in Southern California, but he's written a bestseller called Purpose Driven Life. And I love that title, but really that sums it up. That sums it up for me as a follower of Jesus, and just looking at the story and the life of my father. As you know, we just came out with a documentary really highlighting how this man, who even his own family ridiculed him, they treated him like an outcast. But when God, and this is when our dad was coming out of the Vietnam War, he was fighting a different battle, a war in his soul, because he was an alcoholic, a wife abuser, a child beater. And I won't go into the whole story, but Jesus got a hold of this man's life and totally transformed him from the inside out. So you have this man who then he and our mom started having a family, And he was determined. He was determined to see his children, all of us, really encounter Jesus, not just from a religious standpoint, but really from a relationship standpoint. And so, as I started building my relationship with God and became an adult, and then at some point had my own family. Listen, I have chapters and chapters of a book that I'll write someday of hitting the absolute rock bottom. You know, I went through a divorce, and I went through a breakup in a previous relationship, and even out of that, what the devil meant for evil, I'll tell you what, Carlos, God turned it around for my good. You know, God healed me, had to restore me. It was a long journey, but as I sit here today, you know, with 5 kids, Jackson, Dylan, Haley, Riley, and Levi, and then having a grandson in Shiloh, it truly is what I would say the grace of God, you know, because there's just no way when you encounter devastation and a real heartbreak, even like divorce. Some people it's probably drugs or financial ruin. We all have our stories, but it's amazing how God, in his sovereign way, man, he not only healed me, he redeemed me, he restored me, but because of that blessing, and now even with the opportunity to continue to create wealth, not just for me and my family, but for things that we want to contribute to me, it goes back to what Rick Warren was writing about, that we have purpose. And you and I talk a lot about this, that, man, it's one thing to find ways to expand a portfolio and to increase our revenue, but it's another thing to understand that what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul?
Yeah.
That's scripture. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? You and I, and I'm so grateful for you, bro, because we have an opportunity to teach and to spread this way of not just creating wealth, but how we can help people to help their families, to build a legacy long after they're gone, but also to participate and to contribute into things that have meaning, that have purpose, things that are, quite frankly, saving lives. So I just I'm grateful for God. I'm grateful for the relationship. Even now, I'm still learning and discovering new things about God. But one thing I could tell you, man, is that everything that I have, I would not have it had it not been for Jesus coming into my life, setting me free, and then helping me to take the blessing and growing in abundance. And one of those gifts that he gave me several years ago, man, was meeting you.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah. You know, and that's really, I'm so grateful too for having met you, because I think for me, it's been the same thing, right? The unconditional love of God, that no matter how imperfect we are, or how many mistakes we make, or, you know, sometimes we're stubborn, we have an ego, we are, you know, we go against, and we know we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like we know we're doing it. And even though all that, there's that unconditional love that you can count on no matter what, that grace that you can count on no matter what, that forgiveness that you can count on no matter what. And as men, especially, having a guide and a compass of, you know, especially in this day and age where, you know, the values sometimes get out of whack, and people think that, you know, men are not men anymore. The ability to understand, hey, you know, you're a man, you're supposed to be a leader, you're supposed to be a provider, you're supposed to love your wives, you're supposed to set an example for your children, you're supposed to be respectful to your community and your peers, and to be strong, right? And to be strong to the point that we are at the end of the day the protectors of our family, the protectors of our values, the protectors of so many things that are under attack. Like we can see it, right? So I think for me in business and of course in family, going back to understanding, hey, I'm a guy, I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother. What does that mean? And if you go to the Bible, and for the audience listening, if you go to the Bible, it's all there, right? If there's any ambiguity, because maybe you didn't have a dad, right, that could give you a good example, or maybe an absent father, or you're an orphan, or or you were raised by a single mom, or anything else. I was very blessed that I grew up with my dad, but my dad didn't know God, right? My dad didn't have that relationship. So, his view of the world was very different to mine. So, I learned some great things, but I also, once I met my big daddy, right? then that started shaping up. So, for me also, I can't tell you how many times I count my blessings and I go back and think, especially when you have kids, and I'm sure now that you have a grandkid, it even amplifies even more. It's like, I want to continue to be a great example to my kids, to my grandkids, and to those around me, because no matter what, guys, you're being watched, right? And I know that you are probably mentoring and guiding and being the leader for some men around you, some younger men around you, because I've seen it at your shows, and I've seen how people look up to you and your brothers. But also in business, I think that's one of the things that I see a lot, that we're supposed to guide other young men to Christ, and show them that, hey, this is free, right? It's free to everybody, but because it's free, it needs to be taken advantage of. And if you do, the riches that you'll find when you accept them are infinite. So yeah,
We are the protectors of our homes.
yes.
I like to put it this way: we are the priests of our homes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, that doesn't, here's actually what that means. It also means that as the protector, as the provider, as the leader of our homes, one thing, and this is something that God convicted me of, and I'm still growing in this, is that I also should be able to announce my flaws, my own shortcomings, because we're also husbands, as you and I know, right? And so, as a leader, as the priest of our homes, we are to lead by example. And one of the greatest examples that you and I, and that fathers, that men could lead for their kids especially, is to hear them say, you know what, I didn't get that right, or I know better, or simply, I'm sorry, I apologize. It's a hard thing for men to do, and I'm just speaking for myself, to admit, that I do have flaws, but it's the greatest example to our kids. Here's what we know as earthly dads, as earthly fathers. The best example, and you touched on it, is to look at the relationship between the Heavenly Father and us, right? The Bible says, man, I would never, if my son or daughter was asking for a piece of bread, would I give them a serpent? No, I'm going to give them a piece of bread.
Yeah.
How much more does the Heavenly Father love us as His children? That's the parallel, and it's a beautiful thing.
So true, so true. It's been a wonderful time spending some podcast time with you, my friend. We've enjoyed a lot of trips together. We've enjoyed a lot of mastermind sessions together, and of course a lot of fellowship when we've done our deals. We continue to grow this. And what I wanted to just finish off with is just a little bit of as someone that has already been doing this for a few years and investing and seeing how things are panning out, and now you guys are making some steady cash flow in your investments, and our properties are appreciating, and you've seen the tax benefits hit. What would you tell to folks that are watching or listening that they should do as a first step of someone that maybe has no clue about investing in real estate, or maybe they're investing in smaller stuff? Like, what should they pay attention to, what they should listen to, and maybe even some things to avoid?
Absolutely. Well, brother, first of all, thanks again, man. This was a delight to be on your podcast and just to chop it up. I think the first thing I would say to anyone who's watching, number one, it's not too late. It's not too late. And maybe you've been feeling like, because you might be in the same demographic as me and Carlos, but I could tell you really from example that it's not too late. I think the other thing I would say is to just evaluate where you're at with your finances, because Carlos, you've told me this many times. There are many wealthy people or people who are making six figures even now, but at the end of every year, or maybe going into tax season, they have little to nothing in the bank. That's right? So again, as you're earning money, whether it's a good amount, or maybe you're just getting started as a young person, the thing I would say is start storing, or as we know, save. Start saving a percentage of your money. I think once I got the concept of investing, I think I was saving anywhere between 15 and 20%. I'm now at the place where I'm saving close to 35-40%. Over time, just start saving. And if it means to cut back on some of the things that you like to splurge on, Dave Ramsey puts it this way. He says to delay pleasure. And some of us, maybe we could take heed to that message, but then the next step is, once you start saving, then start looking for real estate investments, that opportunities where you can invest in. I will say this: if you're listening, I would highly recommend you getting around someone like a Carlos Salguero. That's really what accelerated it for me. And I know everyone's got their own journey, but I think having someone, a mentor, and someone like Carlos, not only kept me accountable, but just really taught me the basics, the fundamentals. And even up to this day, I don't go all over the place. I just stick to the basics. And that's really all you need. It doesn't have to be complicated. You just need to see your hard-earned money and the money that maybe you're starting to save. Start putting it into some real estate that can give you cash flow, that can help you with your taxes, see some tax benefits, and then of course see some long-term appreciation. And I've only been in this really for the last 3 or 4 years, but I am grateful because I see, again, long after I'm gone, Lord willing, with what I've learned, with what I've put into application, this is going to bless my children and their children, and on and on. And
it's amazing how once you change your outlook, and I think this is one of the things that we have to think about, is the traditional ways don't really play out the way that we think. Because a lot of people get advice of, just get a good job, follow the 9 to 5, work for 30 years, 40 years, and you'll be set. And as long as you invested in a 401k, that's great. But what it's missed in that whole narrative is, cash in the bank depreciates. Money in a non-performing retirement account depreciates and loses value. So by the time that you are of retirement age, you are not going to have enough to take care of you for the years that you are not going to be working or don't want to work. And what you need to do is you need to go back to the basics of real estate. Commercial real estate has been the very reliable vehicle that millionaires have used for over 100 years to protect their wealth. And that's the first thing: protect the money, trade it for something that appreciates. Cash in the bank, dollars depreciate. Convert it into real estate, it starts appreciating. Second thing you got to pay attention to, and that what you told me, and I remember the first time that you got your checks, distribution checks for the cash flow. You're like, hey, Carlos, I got 2 checks. This is exciting, right? Like that moment of, hey, this money for the first time in so many years is now producing babies without you trading time for dollars. So focusing on the cash flow that you can create over time, and be patient with it, right? Like you got to be patient with it. For some people, it's interesting. They've been saving on a 401k for 10 years, making nothing. And all of a sudden they convert it into real estate investment, and they want to see what they didn't see in 10 years. And the thing, have to be patient. It takes, a couple of years to start showing fruit. And then eventually that stuff starts appreciating, because anyone that has owned a home has seen appreciation. Like very, very few examples. Like I'm sure your home has appreciated. The property you bought with your brothers has appreciated. The properties I bought have appreciated. Commercial real estate appreciates even faster, in growing that net worth that later on you can count on when you decide to maybe not work full time, or move on to, have a little more time with the grandkids, right? So James, again, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend time with you, and I'm forever thankful that God saw that we would meet and we would become great friends and partners and invest together. And there's so much great work that's still ahead of us. But once again, brother, God bless you. Thank you so much for joining me in the Infinite Cash Flow podcast. Any parting words?
Brother, thank you. And I'm just so grateful for you. Continue to do what you're doing, because I'm just one of many. And you know this. I'm one of many who have been blessed, who have benefited from just this wealth of information that you just saw fit. Like I know it. I see it. This is just one of the many callings that God has on your life. And thank you for being obedient. You've blessed me, man.
Thanks so much, brother. For anybody that wants to know more about James Katina and the Katinas, go find them everywhere, thekatinas.com. Find them on Instagram, on TikTok, on every social media platform. James Katina is everywhere. Go listen to their music. They have a beautiful ministry that blesses so many people. Collaborate and contribute to that. And once again, I want to thank you for listening to the Infinite Cash Flow podcast. Click on the subscribe button, share with somebody that you care about, and get notified for the next episode. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you.